While Season 2 of Invincible wasn't a bad season of television in the slightest, there were quite a few issues that held it back from being as good as the first in my opinion. Whether it was from not better explaining certain plot details, the overall messy pacing, or the moronic choice to split it into two parts, in some ways it made me a little unsure if the writers could ever reach the same quality as the first season. Luckily though, all of my fears were put to rest, because Invincible Season 3 is on par with Season 1 in terms of quality, writing, and everything, sometimes even exceeding it. With character relationships becoming more developed, major moments from the comics finally getting adapted, and of course, very, very important characters coming into the spotlight. Tiny spoiler warning, by the way. An issue I took with the last season was, like I mentioned, the pacing of it being a little shaky, where we were constantly bouncing from subplot to subplot without getting enough room to breathe. However, the pacing in this season is extremely good, getting into plenty of new plots, and while at the same time being able to continue the pre-existing ones we have thus far in ways that don't take away from everything else. Like, a good chunk of episode 2 focuses on Cecil's backstory, and it flows naturally with the rest of the episode, without feeling like focus was being unnaturally taken away from other characters during that time. Here, most, if not all of those plots are continued in much more satisfying ways that don't rely on a mid-season break in order for them to feel more natural. While other plots like Alan and Nolan becoming besties is only focused on in a single episode, it works well like that, since if the rest of the plot line played out like that, it would take away a lot of screen time from everyone else and just throw the whole show off as a whole. So in general, everything was paced out perfectly and given the right amount of screen time for it to not feel too long and not feel too short. The characters, as always, continue to be absolutely the highlight of the show in general, with new and returning ones being well written and entertaining. Cecil gets way more of a spotlight this season, like with the aforementioned backstory, as well as his confrontations with Mark, which go off the rails a couple times here and there.
Don't you ever threaten me again. As for the rest of you,
Rex probably gets the strongest character arc this season, developing even further from his original douchebag personality to being an absolute selfless hero. Powerplex, a new addition to Mark's ever-growing list of villains out to get him, feels like a much better and more fleshed out version of what Levy is supposed to be, where the reason for him hating Invincible feels more justified and that can be understood much better, and his descent into madness really makes you feel bad for the guy to an extent. Additionally, I have to give major props to the writers for how impressively they've been adapting the comics, from making small changes that give characters more dimension, to larger ones that really improve Invincible's story as a whole, with one such example being the development Shrinking Ray goes through beyond the comics. I didn't give a flying about her in either season 1 or 2, but here, she was quickly developed into a pretty decent character that plays off of Rex extremely well, and by the finale, it plays into some solid character drama that, truthfully, got me pretty misty-eyed by the end. But within this season, we get to see two extremely important relationships start up: the sibling relationship between Mark and Oliver, and the new romance between Mark and Eve. In no time at all, the true relationship between him and Mark is made apparent and quickly becomes one of my new favorite in the series. You can immediately tell these two have an incredibly close bond with one another, and throughout the season, the brotherly love these two show for each other is really compelling, from simply wanting to be a hero and helping out people like his brother, to being an absolute trooper trying to help Mark take on Conquest. Oliver has established himself as one of the best characters in the show thus far. And with him showing some of the Viltrumite tendencies of their father, Oliver exemplifies the overall theme of this season, with the idea of some villains deserving to die, being justified in order to prevent future death and destruction, which Mark even contemplates. However, the relationship I was looking most forward to was Mark and Eve finally getting together. Since the first time they shared the scene together, we knew these two had chemistry with one another, and seeing them together finally was just so satisfying. Getting to see an extremely positive superhero couple that has fantastic chemistry with each other without any love triangles or bullshit getting in the way made me love these two so much being together. They genuinely felt like characters who were made for one another and love each other deeply, and it's that relationship between the two that really gets you to care about whatever happens to either one of them, and with what they do with them in this season, they definitely pull at your heartstrings a couple times. But beyond all that really good stuff in this season, unfortunately, like the previous two seasons, we've got a problem that has still yet to be properly addressed and continues to be the biggest weakness of the show as a whole. The animation. While still serviceable in being good on a technical level, the animation here still leaves much to be desired. And compared to the previous two seasons, there were a lot more noticeable slip-ups and parts that genuinely looked awful, which is made worse when the quality level shoots through the roof with the last two episodes, since they looked so damn good. I'm watching Conquest beat the ever-loving shit out of Mark, and I'm thinking, why can't the rest of the show look this good? We're 3 seasons in, and the fact that the animation hasn't been significantly improved to where every episode can look like the finale really pisses me off to no end. And look, I'm not an animator. I don't know all the struggles they go through or what abilities they have in order to make this stuff, but I know Amazon has the infinite money glitch enabled, so they have the ability to give the people working on this show more resources. But don't. Maybe instead of hiring the Breaking Bad cast to star as every character here, some of that casting money can be funneled into the animation department or something. I don't know. Just make it look better, please. Other than my animation gripes, most of the other issues I have with the show boil down to simply being nitpicks. Like, I don't really think we needed a recap of what happened to Alan and Omni-Man in Season 2 that lasted like 50 years and could have been easily explained. It was dumb. And then the fallout between the Guardians felt a little awkward, as some of the reasoning for some of the characters felt unnatural. Black Samson starts talking shit about Invincible, but we've never seen him being disproving of what Mark has been doing up until now, so that was a little off. And that bum Immortal, even after making up with Mark in Season 2, is back to hating him again for some reason, which I don't understand. And then Kate being an inconsiderate asshole and douchebag doesn't exactly help in this circumstance.
Don't lecture me, Ray. I went through just as much as you and Rex.
But genuinely, besides all of that, there are so few problems I have with this season, because it practically improves upon everything done prior and then some. Season 3 is really damn good, continuing the story and characters in new and interesting ways, introducing new compelling characters that'll play even bigger roles in the future, while also laying the foundation for the ever-growing scale of the main story that's currently unfolding, while never forgetting the smaller stuff happening as well. The show hasn't lost any steam whatsoever, and truthfully, if it was able to maintain a higher quality of animation, it would be practically perfect. But as is, Invincible continues to be a must-watch show, and has given me no reason to be less excited for future seasons, especially since bigger plots are starting to unfold. Can't wait for Season 4 whenever that comes out. But until then, the Invincible fan within me will go back into hibernation, eagerly anticipating it. So until then, I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.